Yeah. This was not on my bingo card. I'll be I'll be completely honest with you. Never on the campaign trail was dominance of northern the northern continent ever on the to-do list. But apparently Trump knows something that the rest of us do not. In my opinion, it kind of seems like a time traveler came from the future and they just discerned that had we absorbed the countries to our north along the Arctic Circle, we could have survived whatever was coming. Out of the blue, where is all this talk for absorbing Greenland or annexing Greenland? And what about, and now Canada? I'll be honest with you, the Canadians are extremely liberal, very gay, but they're also disarmed. So they're not much of a threat. They do talk a lot of shit on Twitter, but we ignore them because we're Americans. We live by the law of the jungle. They live by the laws of Harry Potter and Hogwarts. They think they can throw magic at bullets. They are unarmed and they're not fighters. They're not like us Americans. There's 340 million of us. There's about 40 million of them. I don't understand why the sudden obsession with Canada and why we don't want to bring Canadians into our base. A lot of them would vote Democrat. But it seems like this kind of has to happen. I'll let you hear from the horse's mouth himself, and then we'll go into it.
A representative of Canada, will meet members of your administration during the day. Any chances that you will ban on the tariffs on aluminum and the ones that are planned for April 2nd?
Yeah. We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great Wayne Gretzky, the great. How good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they get. We do it because we want to be helpful. But it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago. It makes no sense. It's
okay. All right. Well, I'll be honest with you. That kind of does put things in perspective. Somebody did make a line and just decided they were its own country. But when Trump says we subsidize their economy, that means we are propping them up. The way it works is even with these other countries in Europe, if the United States has to inject 30 billion into your economy annually for your country to exist, then your country cannot exist. And it will not exist. What he's saying now is that as a country, if we remove our subsidies, Canada fails to function as a nation. It will only make sense for us to subsidize Canada further if it is a part of one of our states. Right now, we're basically subsidizing an entire nation and they don't realize it. Americans didn't realize it. I didn't realize that it was the reason Canada exists as a country was because 250 billion we're subsidizing into their economy. We don't need their cars. We don't need their maple syrup. We don't need their wood. We don't need their oil. We don't need their um, we don't need anything. We don't need their steel. We have all of our own industries here in America. We've just been lazy. And because we're capitalists, we found out we can use cheap or slave labor by outsourcing to other countries for certain industries and at the expense of the American people. So we sent our jobs to Canada, or we outsource and we import from other countries. Why are we importing goods and food from other countries when we have a billion acres of farmland that's open where we can grow our own food, chickens, milk? We don't need anything from Canada. We should not be importing food from China. We should have our own everything. So it makes sense if we're tired. You know, that's just like I was like, say you have a girlfriend, right? And you guys break up, but you're a nice guy. So you're like, I'll pay your rent, you know, for the first 6 months of your new apartment until you get a job. I'm subsidizing her lifestyle. But then I get on the internet and here's my ex-girlfriend screaming about how she's so independent and basically saying that I'm an idiot and she doesn't need me and that she is a boss babe and this and this. And I'm like, boss bitch, you're not really a boss. I'm subsidizing your lifestyle so that you can afford to have that attitude. But really, without my subsidy, without the United States, you won't have that apartment. You won't be able to generate an income to support yourself. Now, if I remove my subsidies, it'll only make sense if you're back being my girlfriend again, except I just let you live in your own apartment, but I still have access to you. We're still together. You're just living in your own place. But if we're broken up and you're your own independent woman, your own sovereign person, well, then you don't need my subsidies to survive, right? In Canada right now, they are our girlfriend who has become a little too big for their britches. I'll be honest, the premier Ford of Ontario. Ontario is where Toronto is located in that province. I used to live in Canada. Actually, I lived right outside of Toronto in Woodbridge, and it was very. I did like Canada. There are some things about it I don't like. It is a very, very expensive place. However, the food is healthier. And it's a night and day difference between food in Canada and food in the United States. We're like right across the border from each other. When I used to live in Michigan, I used to drive through to, what's it called? Winchester, right across the bridge in Detroit. And I'm in Canada. And I'm like, this is amazing. It's a whole nother world right across the way. I'll be honest, I didn't know we were subsidizing the Canadians for all these years. I had no clue that they only existed because of us. Now, did I know that Estonia and some of these Eastern European bloc countries were getting billions from us a year? And that's the only reason why those countries were able to survive independently away from the Russians. You know, after the fall of the USSR, those countries were in disrepair, but NATO wanted access so they could surround Russia. So artificially, they prop up these economies and they put these presidents in power as if these are independent, standalone countries when they're not. They're just vassals of the US. But eventually, what if we don't need those vassals anymore? If Russia is no longer an enemy, why do we need to surround them? Why do we need our militaries there? Now, if we brought our troops home, that would make sense when it comes to protecting our actual land mass. Again, the talk of absorbing Canada while at the same time talking about fighting the cartels in Mexico. Do you understand what that would trigger? That would trigger a situation where the United States would eventually have to fight the Mexican government since the cartels control the Mexican government. We would have to put people in place and replace the current leadership of Mexico. We would have to occupy Mexico. In other words, since we're on the same landmass, we would have to absorb Mexico. It seems like we're a year away, maybe a year and a half away from taking both the northern border and the southern border. We could be 15, 16 months away from literally the United States owning the entire northern hemisphere landmass. That's what it looks like at the same time that we're talking about invading Mexico to fight the cartels, But if the cartels put Scheinbaum in office, the president, then that means that the cartels and the government are one. We would have to replace the government once the cartels go down. And we would have to occupy Mexico. We would have to install our own puppet leaders there, same way we did in the Ukraine. Except the Ukraine is far away. This is not. And we're saying about doing it this, it looks like there will no longer be a need for NAFTA. NAFTA was the North American Free Trade Agreement, where they would introduce a currency that would combine all three countries called the Amero. There will not be that if we take Canada and Mexico. We would still use the American dollar, and we can absorb them where we're not literally subsidizing them. Again, it would only make sense if these places are a part of the United States. But I just don't understand why we need both. But maybe there's something we don't know, a potentiality of China coming into the Northern Hemisphere through Denmark, or coming into making deals with the Mexicans. And maybe that's why we're like, well, these people want to give up their sovereignty to these other countries. They might as well just give it to us. Again, obviously Trump is the president. He knows more than we do. And I think he's making moves based off of intel he has that we're not privy to, because this doesn't make sense any other way. You don't just wake up with the bright idea of just taking Mexico and Canada, making them a part of the United States. Something had to have transpired, and a lot of thought went into this. This isn't just a willy-nilly decision.
So perfect. It's a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state. But why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything. We don't need the cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. And it's not a thing that we need. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. We have to do this. I'm sorry. We have to do this. Yes.
I don't know if you guys are paying attention to that, but this sounds like it's already been decided. This isn't up for debate. This isn't, we're not on the fence about this, apparently. This is already done. Again, if I have a girlfriend that lives in an apartment and I stop paying the rent, she doesn't have a job and she doesn't want to work, where is she going to get the money? How long is she going to last? On average, you have 30 days. You don't pay your rent. They serve you with an eviction notice. Depending on what state you're in, you have about 2 months, max 3. Unless you're in California, then you got 6. And in 6 months, you're evicted. How long can this government in Canada, how much savings do they have? $250 billion subsidy annually for their goods. But again, the premier of Ontario threatened to cut off the electricity to 3 states in the United States, effectively threatening to kill Americans who depend on electricity to live. Unfortunately, we cannot allow people to make those threats. Now, don't get me wrong. It was only 24 hours later before he had backtracked and apologized. Look it up. Ford apologized. And he said, I can bring it up. But the point is, they have a little bit too much power. Sometimes you get a little too big for your britches. If he was the mayor of Ontario instead of the premier, and if Trudeau or whoever the next, the Canadian prime minister would just be a governor, which is essentially what that is. Mark Carney, Prime Minister Mark Carney, has vowed that Canada will never become a part of the United States, pushing back against U.S. President Donald Trump's speculation about making a northern neighbor the 51st state. I do not think these people understand how conquest works. I think these people think that the world is the way it is now, has always been this way. We don't ask, we take. If you can't defend it, it will be taken. You can complain about it 200 years later and cry about it, but no one really cares. You will lose it. You really can't stop us from taking what we are. Now we can have niceties, and we can pretend that it's actually a debate. We can pretend that you have an option, and we can give you a little vote, make you feel like you had some kind of option, but you don't. The Canadians do not have a military force that could stop us from taking Canada. None of these places do. Right now in Europe, the reason why you don't even see us talking to Europe and Putin, what did I say last week on live? I said Putin's going to laugh at your offer and he's going to reject it. And what did Putin do today? He told the Americans to wipe, they can go wipe their ass with that settlement. Why would I settle for half of the Ukraine so that they can regroup and rearm? But the Nazis elements are still a part of their government. Technically, and the most efficient way to do this would be to replace their entire government in Kiev with a friendly, neutral government controlled by the Russians. The Americans can't do a thing about it. All the saber rattling of Europe cannot do a thing about it. Europe and the Ukraine are both done for. The Russians attempted peace. They rejected it. So if Russia is going to absorb the Ukraine and possibly the Eastern European bloc countries because they can't survive without the United States, then why wouldn't the United States absorb the Canadians, who we have to subsidize for their existence to even continue, and also the Mexicans who are allowing our citizens to be poisoned? I'm not exactly sure about how the Mexican government works or how much we give them, but I'm sure it's nominal. We don't need the Canadians for anything. So if we stop giving them money every year, being the nice boyfriend, how long will the Canadian government be able to last without any income? Not very long. Not very long at all. So it's not, this is already, the way Trump's talking as the president of the United States is that this has already been decided and this is going to happen whether one way or the other. You can cry and you can be a gay, tough guy behind a keyboard on Twitter all day and night. It's not going to make a difference. The bald eagle of America will still land on your shoulders, and that's it. There's nothing you can really do about it, except learn to love the American flag. You're going to have to. And in a way, I guess we're going to be liberating the Canadians, because if not, then we're basically going to just subjugate, basically just let them fall in their own footprint. If we stop giving the Canadians money, the country fails. Then what? You talk about disruption. They can't afford that. And again, these people can only talk this tough talk because of the money we give them. We remove our money and let's see how this tough talk, let's see how fast it turns into groveling and begging. I'm sure it won't take that long. And the campaign's over. Trump's only going to be a one-term president. So this is not just campaign, just spreading a narrative. This is something that's already been decided. And Ottawa can't afford to say anything because they depend on our money. And money does make countries and the world go around. Yeah, I was not expecting to have to take the Canadians. I was not expecting that at all. And he's saying we're not bending on the tariffs. Canada won't survive this at all. They can't survive it. Money doesn't grow on trees or come out of thin air unless you're the Federal Reserve. They don't have a Federal Reserve. They can't just print their own money and inject it to survive. That's pretty much it. Do me a favor, like and subscribe, share the video, and think about what I'm saying. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. Canada will be a part of the United States. And also, if we take the cartels out, then so will Mexico. So will Mexico. But I don't even know if we can handle that. But when we bring our military, because think about it, there's no need for leaving our military in Europe because we're not fighting the Russians anymore. Because that's a war that would just basically get our troops killed for no reason. That's a pointless war. That's a war we would lose. So it's time to bring them home. And we can station them throughout the northern, the upper peninsula of Canada and down through Baja, California, and through Cancun. So that way those areas can be protected from the cartels or any extremists that might want to pop up in place of the cartels. However, if we take the Mexican government, then we can control what is bred there and who's actually running the country right now. It is ran by the cartels, and we do have to do something about that. I just did not think that dominating Canada and Mexico was actually on the to-do list, but we're not even 2 months in, and they are. So it's just I guess it's a new reality. This is one that the globalists did not predict, and anything to catch the globalists off guard, I fully support. America first. You can get right or get left. You can roll with us or get rolled over, but either way, we're coming. Pause. No Diddy. Like and subscribe, share the video. We'll be back shortly with another segment.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.